I feel like I'm pretty badass on this bike. Like I feel like I'm just absorbing credibility while I'm riding, while people are looking like, hey, this guy rides a real Harley. It has a nice, mature power. I don't think I can reach 6th gear without breaking the law quite a bit. Like, the acceleration feels so good. Oh my. What I feel like right now, I feel like Arnold from Terminator. Now, is it as much fun as a Sportster? Welcome back everybody to the KS Moto Cafe. This week's episode, I'm going to be doing a review and the first ride impression of the 2021 Softail Slim. Where I'll be going is Barnes Harley Davidson Dealership in Victoria. They now have 4 locations where they just opened up one in Edmonton in Alberta. But they also have shops in Langley and Kamloops and of course here in Victoria. Here I'll be introducing you to the sales consultant who I've been working with ever since I bought my 2020 Iron 883. Awesome guy to work with, so if you get a chance to purchase anything from Barnes Harley Davidson Dealership, purchase it from Steve. Steve. Okay, here is the 2021 Softail Slim. Wow, this is the biggest motorcycle I have ever ridden, considering that I'm coming from a 2020 Sportster Iron 883. I did get a chance to ride the 1200 series of the Sportster, but man, this is the Milwaukee 8, the big time 107 cubic inches in this bad boy here. Let's go from the front to the back here. We got this big ass inverted forks. We got the spoke wheel, which means there's tubes in these tires. And surprisingly enough, for this size of a bike and an engine, Harley Davidson still decided to do single disc, which we'll find out if it actually grips really well. Obviously it's fuel injected, and this one has 6-speed rather than my Sportster, which is a 5-speed. So we'll figure out how that handles on the highway. There is a floorboard here that will allow you to put your feet down rather comfortably, and there is an option to put in one of those rear gear adjusters so that you actually don't have to just use the front. You can use the back and the front to change your gears, which I don't have experience in, but from what I heard, once you start using it, it actually is very comfortable to use for. You don't see the shocks on the back because it's actually a monoshock underneath the seat. So to adjust the shocks, you will have to take off the seat, and then there's a dial that you can move with the tool that's given on the bike. So like always, what I'll do is I'll hop onto the motorcycle here, get a feel of the bike, get through the friction zone, go through maybe 1 or 2 gears around this Harley Davidson dealership, and then once I feel comfortable with it, then I'll take it out for a spin. Now right off the bat, I do find that this is a lot fatter than my Iron 883. The seat is wider and the tank is definitely wider. It is a 5-gallon tank. For a close to 700-pound motorcycle, it actually feels pretty decently light. The handlebars feel very similar to my Iron 883. It actually has a bit more pullback. Controls are exactly the same. Starting from the left, we got instrument cycle system here, where you'll see the instrument. Once I click the instrument cycle button, it'll go through trip A, trip B, range, time, and the RPM. And you'll also notice in the instrument cluster in the middle, you actually have a fuel gauge on that, which is pretty decent. And you got the horn, you got the high beam, low beam, left turn signal, which self-cancels, and then on the right side you got the right turn signal, which also self-cancels, hazard light, and then the ignition. Based on what it is for now, like it's a very simplistic motorcycle. This is considered a bobber because it doesn't have any of the neat gadgets that like a Road King would have. No speakers, no big fairing. So it's kind of like a Sportster Plus with the Milwaukee 8 engine. So we'll see how that feels. Let's see what the startup sounds like. You know, considering the radius of the Softail, it actually is pretty quiet. Yeah, definitely quiet. All right. I'm actually being super careful right now, just considering this is the biggest bike that I've ever been on, so just taking it slow. Like, it feels lighter than the Roadster I was on. I must say I'm not a big fan of the floorboards for now, only because it just feels like it gets in the way when I'm trying to put my foot underneath. Brakes feel pretty responsive. But yeah, the bike is very nimble. I was expecting for a 700-pound bike that it would be harder to move, but compared to my Iron 883, it feels just as light. The pull is definitely there. If I pull on the throttle just like the way I do on my Iron 883, it takes off a lot faster. I'm starting to get used to it now. Okay, let's bring her in, change my batteries on my GoPro, and then take her for a real test ride.
2 very boring minutes later.
Alright, so let's go for a test ride here. So right off the bat, when I went around the block here back and forth, my initial impressions right away, the seating position wasn't the most comfortable for me, just because it just feels so wide on the bottom side here where my crotch is. But I am getting the hang of the floorboards. I'm still not the biggest fan of it, but I think I can see the benefit of having those floorboards during highway rides where you're not braking as often or you're not changing the gears often and you just want to sit back and relax. So I can see the value in that. It's just for my way of riding right now, it's not the most comfortable yet. The handle feels nice and surprisingly it feels super light. So for over 700-pound bike, when it's wet, it doesn't feel that way. In fact, I think the Roadster felt heavier than this. Okay, so let's turn the engine back on. I like having the fuel gauge on this. I mean, everyone should kind of know their own bike and understand based on the mileage on the bike on trip A or trip B. But I'm a driver, you know. I've driven longer than I have riding my bike, so I'm used to seeing that gauge and I like having that. All right, so let's go for a rip. So for the specs, I'll put it up on display while I'm riding as I talk about it. But in terms of torque, it has about 110 foot-pounds of torque, which is amazingly high. And it's all delivered around 3,000 RPM. So lots of good low-end torque. And then in terms of horsepower, I think it's about low 80s. So for a 1750cc motorcycle, it's actually kind of embarrassingly low, but that's comparing it to a sport bike, right? So this is a cruiser class, and really, even on my Iron 883, which is below 50 horsepower, like, it handles all right. So you don't really need much more because I'm not going to be racing in this bike. And I'm mentioning it again, but the handling feels so nice and smooth and buttery. Look at this. I'm just flicking it like as if it's nothing. Wow, that was a rock. In terms of the lean angle, it's actually less compared to my Iron 883. I believe it's about 27 degrees. I think the reason why it's lower than my Iron 883 is probably because of these floorboards. It sticks out quite a bit. As I mentioned during my quick test with the friction zone, the throttle response is a little jumpier than the Iron 883. It delivers power right away, and it kind of has a jerking motion when I want to go. It really pulls right away. So for people who want to feel that excitement of acceleration, I think this bike at 107 cubic inches is definitely a good start. Now, would I recommend this to beginner rider? I mean, I'm a beginner rider, but I also have about 2,500 kilometers under my Iron 883. I had a chance to ride the 1200 Sportsters, so I kind of have an understanding how a bike works. If this was my very first bike, I would be in a lot of trouble because the handling is kind of awkward. More on that later after I do a side-by-side comparison of the motorcycle. Now the Softail Slim's seat is very similar to my Iron, where it's a tuck and roll. Has a bit more cushion to it, and I do find that it does catch my butt in the back slightly better than my Iron 883. But the biggest improvement I find is that giant monoshock that's underneath my butt. Like, it handles extremely well. Like, I feel like I can weave through a lot of things. And I think that's a combination of slightly higher handlebars and more pullback, as well as the inverted forks of the front wheel suspension. Let's see what the turning radius is like. Yeah, it's not bad. Now I'm getting the same kind of effect that I had on the Roadster test ride, where I have a lot more field of vision just because instrument cluster, or at least the instrument reader, isn't right in front of you like the way it does for my Iron. But at the same time, I do have to look down away from the road to see how fast I'm going. It's not really in the peripherals of my lower end of the vision. Now, as I'm riding, I am gripping the fuel tank a bit more with my knees, and it is touching the air filter. I'm not sure if anything else near that area will get hot enough to burn any of my clothing. So I am worried about that, because for my Iron or other Sportsters that I've ridden, my legs weren't touching anything. So it's just something that's new to me. Maybe that's how you ride on this. It doesn't feel bad yet, but I'll tell you once it starts burning my calves or something. Now, Harley makes a lot of Softail models like the way they do Sportsters. Only difference is each Softail model is quite different. Now, one thing about the Slim is that in 2018, they changed over to the Milwaukee 8s. Prior to that, let's say 2017 model, they used to have 104 cubic inches of Softail Slim, and then there was another version which is called Softail Slim S, which had the upgraded Screaming Eagle at 110 cubic inches. From what I've seen on my research, the Softail Slim S is actually a really decent bike to play with. The 2021 model, it only comes with a 107. As of right now, I like this bike quite a bit. It has a nice, mature power. It doesn't feel too crazy for me. It feels lighter than I had expected. And let's see once we get on the highway of how this thing handles. I want to see if I can actually get to the 6th gear, because I haven't ridden a bike with 6 gears yet. Wow. So I'm in 4th gear now. It's quite comfortable. Like, given that I'm only on 4th gear and I'm going about 100 kilometers per hour, I can tell that there's a lot more space. Now, compared to the Roadster, it doesn't feel as sporty or fast. I mean, obviously this bike can go faster than the Roadster, but just based on the ergonomics of how I'm riding right now, I just feel a little bit more chill and relaxed. I can see riding this motorcycle for hours, which I couldn't say for the Sportster models. Now, if these vehicles kindly get out of the way, I would be able to try a little bit more acceleration. The only thing I don't like about it right now is exhaust sound is non-existent at highways. Yeah, it's got so much space for speed. And unfortunately, I don't know if you guys can actually hear me. Yeah, like, I don't think I can reach 6th gear without breaking the law quite a bit. Like, the acceleration feels so good. Oh, fuck. I feel like a hooligan. Yeah, I could ride on this bike for hours. It's definitely a proper cruiser. Now, it is a bobber, so it doesn't have any bags and stuff like that, but you can buy that additionally. Actually, you know what? Let's go for city roads rather than highways. We know that this handles really well on highways. I want to know what it feels like on residential roads at slow speeds and how it handles on brakes. Surprisingly, grips really well. I gotta look up if the brakes are different than my Iron, because It's gotta be, because it's gripping a lot better than, let's say, the 1248 that I rode, which also had a single disc for a 1200 engine, and I did not feel very confident on the front brakes on that one. And I thought I was going to have a very similar issue on this motorcycle, considering it's a 1750cc motorcycle with 150 extra pounds in the Sportster with only single disc. So yeah, I was skeptical. But yeah, I feel pretty confident braking this. You know what I feel like right now? I feel like Arnold from Terminator. And I'm pretty sure this was a very similar motorcycle that he stole from a biker gang when he first came into present world. Now, is it as much fun as a Sportster? No, Sportster felt more fun to ride in. I don't know, maybe it's the riding ergonomics or just the way it handles between the gears. But in terms of fun, I'd say I give it to the Sportster for city riding. But in terms of comfort, 100% the Softail Slim is 100% more comfortable. Like even the seat is a lot more comfortable. Yeah, I feel like a pretty badass on this bike. Like I feel like I'm just absorbing credibility while I'm riding, while people are looking like, hey, this guy rides a real Harley. Yeah, I must say this is definitely a bike that I would choose if I was more into more longer rides and still having a bobber look that the Sportsters are known for. Yeah, I even forgot that I had floorboards now. Let's see how this is like on starting up on a hill. I assume it's very similar to a Sportster, but given that it has 150 more pounds, maybe it's slightly more difficult to push up. Now, I got a chance to hear what the Softail Slim sounds like with the short shots installed from Vance & Hines, and yep, it sounds really good. You know what, let's see how it handles winding roads at slower speeds, and then we'll bring it back to the dealership where I can do a side-by-side comparison with my Iron 883 as I do for all my motorcycle reviews. So if you're new to this channel and haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button because it will help my new channel grow. And at the same time, I do a monthly giveaway from Revzilla or Fortnite as a kind gesture to my subscribers. All you gotta do is comment on any of my videos and you get yourself a draw. This is actually where I learned how to ride my motorcycle at this school parking lot from Learn to Ride. Very nice time. And that's the hill that I got stuck on numerous times. All right, let's see what the scenic road looks like. But so far, I'm very happy with this motorcycle for two reasons. One, that I as a beginner who has only ridden Sportsters, the 883 and the 1200, can handle this bike, so I'm happy about that. And then the second one is that it's a very comfortable ride. Like I am not sore anywhere along my body. So for a person with like lower back issues like me, this bike handles really well, and I feel that it'll be good for my back. I know I said initially that I'm not a big fan of these floorboards, but I'm starting to like them. I think it adds about like 15 years to my age, to the look that I have on this bike right now. But it is comfortable, and that's what this cruiser class is all about. Yeah, the acceleration is phenomenal, but it doesn't feel as fun. That's the thing. It doesn't feel as fun as the Sportster Roadster, which was the most fun on higher speeds. This bike is by far the most comfortable bike I've been on. And surprisingly enough, like I said, for its weight class, it's very nimble. It handles turns really well, at least for city riding. no issues with taking turns. Even with that 1 degree less lean angle, like, I don't feel less confident on the turns at all. And like I said, the brakes feels relatively nice. It grips really well for a single disc brake. So I can see why Harley isn't making dual disc automatic as a stock bike, even though they should. Really, they should. But the single disc works, guys. It works. It doesn't grip as well as the Roadster did with its twin discs, but it doesn't feel as loose as the 48 did. The mirrors are pretty good, even though they're same size as my Iron. I guess because the handlebars are slightly wider, I have a better time actually seeing my blind spots. So let's bring this bike where I can do a side-by-side with my Iron 883 as I do always, and see where we're at. Here's my Iron 883. Put it right next to it. Okay, so on my left is my 2020 Harley Iron Sportster 883, and then on my right is the sexy 2021 Softail Slim. Just from looking at it right now, the Softail Slim is like the bigger brother of the Sportster. It just has very similar resemblance, only bigger. Okay, so as I come into the shot here, I'm about 5'10". My inseam is about 30 inches, and this is my 2020 Iron 883, as you guys all know. And on this nice little motorcycle here, because it is mid-control, I do have this 90-degree angle here, so if you're a taller rider, this can feel really crammed. But for me, with 30-inch inseam, it feels perfectly nice. The handlebars are up high, so it has a nice rider triangle here, where it's from my foot to my ass to my handlebars. It has a really nice right triangle, which makes it feel really nice on the road. Now the seat height is about 26 inches, and from research coming over to the Softail Slim, Softail Slim is lower than that by an inch. So really, any shorter riders should be able to handle this really comfortably. The only difference, like I said before, is it is really wide in the middle. So you will feel it a little bit extended between the groins. It is a forward control system where it comes with the floorboards. And your rider's triangle is slightly more extended, but because there's a lot more pullback from the handlebars and it's slightly higher, I do find that my back is slightly straighter, and with the legs it's extended like this, I feel a lot more comfortable on the roads and handling the turns and weaving through certain obstacles back and forth. This actually felt really nice on that road. So as a 30-inch inseam person, the rider triangle looks like this. Slightly more angled towards the front, but because the handlebars are further up and pulled back more, I do find myself a lot more comfortable compared to the other bikes that I've ridden on, especially on highways. So as I conclude the review of this motorcycle here, very sturdy, very planted, powerful motorcycle. Highly recommended, again, for riders who have a little bit more experience on riding a motorcycle. If you're a beginner rider like I am and have about 2,000 or more clicks on your first motorcycle, and you're looking for that next upgrade for touring, but still having that classic bobber look, the Softail Slim is definitely something that I would look to do a test ride on. And if you're a shorter rider, then this bike will also be a good fit for you as well, because it has the lowest seat height for Harley Davidson models. It's very minimalistic, but it has all the gadgets that you need, and I would highly recommend it. If you're in the British Columbia or Alberta area, or even in Canada, come to Barnes Harley Davidson Dealership and then look up for my man Steve here. He'll take care of you. And if you're a military veteran, you can also apply for that military discount that he can talk to you through. So in that, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week. Peace.